Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to this special edition of the RCB Radio Sports Show, where we're talking this month. We're previewing icons of the sporting entertainment industry. These are people that have left their mark over the last 30 or 40 years in the sports entertainment industry. And my guest this evening, he needs no introduction in terms of sports entertainment. His family, his surname is known all over the world. It's an iconic name in Puerto Rico, like the Guerrero name is known in Mexico. The Colon name is known in Puerto Rico. I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Carlos Colon Jr. And if you're wondering, Carlos Colon Jr., I think I've heard that name before. It might ring a bell. Yes, it is Carlito Caribean Cool that appeared in WWE SmackDown and WWE Raw. I'm delighted to be talking him to here today. He still has the afro that he donned in those sort of early days in the WWE. And we all remember him for his favorite fruit, the apple, in terms of wherever he went, there was always an apple beside him. But Carlos, if I want to take you back right to the start, growing up as a boy, I know there was yourself and Primo, and there was another daughter as well. Growing up in the Colon family, I believe your mother was from Canada. In terms of Puerto Rico at that time, what was that like in terms of growing up in an iconic family?
It was great, Puerto Rico, island life. Pretty much everything revolved around wrestling because, my dad had started his promotion before we were even born. And as soon as we got old enough, we started doing jobs around at the arenas, at the shows, be it working in the canteen, be it selling beer out in the crowd, putting up the ring, with the road crew a little bit. And I even was the cameraman for a little bit before I eventually evolved into being an actual wrestler.
And Carlos, in terms of that family sort of industry, your father owned the sort of World Wrestling Council. So you were sort of brought up in terms of the business. And what was it like having your father as a sort of wrestler that probably went and probably traveled overseas, maybe at times traveled all over the world, that you probably got to see your mother obviously there probably in Puerto Rico raising you as two boys and not seeing your father around as well as much and often? Do you feel that was the path you wanted to go on, or did you see the distractions of actually coming from a wrestling family in terms of how it can impact your life? Obviously your father was probably around the good bit, but he probably wasn't around as much as well in terms of occasions growing up.
Yeah, it's weird, people complain about that, but me, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? I didn't get the most attention from my dad, but I was actually okay with that.
You're actually, yep, continue.
Yeah, but no, yeah, exactly. I was actually okay with that. And then of course that taught me a lot about what to expect if I was to become a wrestler. So I kind of knew already what the lifestyle was going to be. So it was kind of like it wasn't a surprise to me, which was good. I already knew what was coming ahead.
And Carlos, in terms of that, working in the sort of family industry, you mentioned you started off as a cameraman. Were you always sort of had that sort of acting sort of flair, that sort of personality, or do you study wrestlers in your father's industry, the heels and all that, to try and develop trades? Were you actually very nervous and shy and maybe a bit intimidated at first trying to start off, or did you always have that natural confidence and flair?
No, that developed over years. But I don't think I studied anybody just because it was around me all the time. So it was kind of like, it was already influenced on me without even knowing, because I'd seen, everybody from everywhere. I'd seen Ric Flair already in Puerto Rico. I'd seen Andre the Giant. Everybody pretty much. There was anybody from Japan or Mexico passed through Puerto Rico. So I would just see all these things and take all these different styles and all these different characters in. And then when I wanted to become a wrestler, the main thing was I wanted to be the next me. I didn't want to be anybody else. But of course, I've already had all these other influences from all these wrestlers that I've seen for since I can remember.
And in terms of wrestling in your father's industry, you worked a long time in your under the World Wrestling sort of Council, and you fought, I was just looking there, even before you came to United States, you fought the One Man Gang, Kurt Hennig, Vampiro, Sabu, all these sort of established stars. So, and very much when you see sometimes when you hear about development talent and new talents coming across to America, some of these are really sort of real vets at those sort of stages, especially the international wrestlers. So I suppose when you came to the WWE and when you tried to move in terms of making your mark in the American wrestling, were you sort of comfortable given that you had that much of that background behind you, having done all that sort of work before with all those sort of major talents as well?
Yeah, I would say I'd say I was confident. At least, I believe in my ability just because of what you said. Like, I'd already wrestled all these veterans, and at the same time, people always ask you, how's the W working in front of thousands of people? I'd already done that in Puerto Rico since I first started. My first match was in front of, I don't know, 8 to 10,000 people. So I was kind of already used to working in front of big crowds. So that was able to give me the confidence to go in there. And my only worry about coming to the United States was just adapting to the American style of wrestling.
Mm. And Carlos, it's shocking to me to mention. Normally, what you find is with sort of these wrestling sports entertainment stars is that they have a natural. I remember speaking to Rod Van Dam, and we all know his martial arts backgrounds. He's a sort of a champion in different sort of codes. Were you sort of versed in other sports growing up? Was basketball, baseball, soccer? What do you play a bit of everything? Were you actually fairly talented at certain sports, other sports that you could have made a career for yourself, but because wrestling was in the family blood, was that the reason you went down that line?
Yeah, no, it's different sports I used to play. Baseball, I didn't like the ball coming at me that fast. And then basketball, I love basketball, but I realized that my genetics wasn't gonna give me the ability or the height to be able to be a basketball player. And then I always loved American football, but they don't have that in Puerto Rico. There's no real, they don't have that in schools or anything. So that was one thing I felt that I could have done maybe if I wasn't a wrestler. But yeah, after that, it was the only I think sport left for me was wrestling, and I'm happy. I'm happy with that choice.
And Carlos, when you came to the WWE, first of all, you went to Ohio Valley Wrestling. Had you that time you went to Ohio Valley Wrestling? Did you get to meet Vince McMahon at that stage, or was it only when you made your WWE debut, or the time you're leading up to your WWE debut that you met Vince? Was Vince there from day one in terms of when you first arrived in the WWE, in terms of going the Ohio Valley
Uh,
route?
yeah, we're going way back. I don't
Okay.
remember. I think
Okay.
my earliest recollection is probably when before I debuted
Okay.
is when I got to meet Vince McMahon and talk to him a little bit.
Okay. And in terms of going to Ohio Valley Wrestling at that time, I know you spent roughly 16 months there in terms of that. Was that sort of tedious at that time for you? Because obviously you have so much extensive sort of background where you just ready, you used to say to yourself, right, I'm ready to go into the main brand right now. Or did you accept that that was part of the process, that you had to wait your time?
Yeah, no, I accepted it, and I welcomed it. I was happy to get my feet wet there before actually, and be able to hone my skills and find myself at least what I would be at the main stage. I think that's where I feel like I developed everything. I mean, I when I got to OVW, I used to shave my head.
Okay.
So but when I got there, everybody else had their head shaved. So that's when the afro kind of came to my mind, where I just started growing my hair out, and people started noticing it, and then I just kind of let it go, and I said, all right, well, nobody has hair like this. Let me use this at least to get differentiate myself from everybody else.
Mm. And in terms of, I know in terms of the first time you tried out that Carlito routine was actually in a dark match. You fought Scotty Too Hotty, and then it was sort of proved by the writers. But in terms of drawing up that sort of character, Carlito, in terms of that creativity, was that a sort of ideas that you brainstormed and you came to the production team and let's try maybe this and let's try maybe that sort of angle? And did it take a while maybe to try and find that sort of character that you were both sort of happy with?
No, once, yeah, because I remember I was a baby face or a good guy when I started, and then once they decided to make me a heel or a bad guy, that's when everything just kind of started clicking and going, because that was more my personality. Basically, it's like they say, is your personality with the volume turned up. So that was kind of like Cardio was based off a lot of my own personality.
Hmm. And that debut match for you, obviously against John Cena, and he obviously went the same sort of route you were on in terms of debuting against Kurt Angle in the sort of same sort of similar circumstances where he made a name for himself in his debut, and then obviously you obviously made a big name for yourself in that match against John Cena as well. When you sort of found out maybe the week or maybe the 2 weeks that you were going to be working with John in terms of that sort of match and build up, was there very much hype and excitement and in terms of staging that match and product that you wanted to put on for the fans?
It wasn't a lot of time. I think they told me maybe about a couple of days before
Okay.
what was going to go on. And then, I talked to Cena probably the day of the match is when we kind of got together.
Okay. And Carlos, can you remember that? I know you've in Puerto Rico, you've fought under massive crowds as well in terms of that. But what was it like appearing on SmackDown for that very first time in front of the US crowd? Were you a bit sort of nervous in terms of how your reaction or how the character might go down? Or was it very much an adrenaline rush or excitement and you sort of, right, I belong here, that sort of sense of feeling?
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything, a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of confidence in myself that, I deserve to be there. A little bit of, I hope I do a good job out there. Yeah, like I said, there's a bunch of mixed emotions, but yeah, but it was, it just happened so fast. It was it was too little time to overthink anything. I had to just go out there and do.
And Carlos, then obviously establishing yourself as a member of the roster, then what was that like in terms of being involved in an international a project and international sort of company as such, where you're traveling all across the United States, you're traveling from state to state, city to city, maybe 4 or 5 nights on the road. You were starting off, you were a young wrestler, maybe in your early sort of 20s in terms of relationships, sort of family. Maybe that wasn't the case for you. Was it tough, those original sort of years, in terms of trying to keep your sort of other avenues of your life together?
No, like I said, I knew what was coming, you know what I mean? And I was excited about it. That's the main thing why I got into wrestling, man, is you get to travel the world, get to see all these different countries and stuff, get to travel. That was, yes, really one of the reasons why I really got into wrestling, why I wanted to do it. So yeah, those first couple of years were great, and you're young, you can travel, no family. So yeah, I welcome that.
And in terms of you arriving in the United States, obviously you mentioned there that you'd seen the likes of Ric Flair as a child growing up, and sort of, so you're accustomed to that. But was ever a case where you arrived in the WWE and you said, right, if at all possible, this match would be one that I would like to have? Was it maybe Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, or was that the sort of character, the Shawn Michaels, that probably you would watch in Puerto Rico, that you had said, right, I love to see what we can do together, or get it on? Was there ever that sort of sense of feeling within the first year or two when the matches were coming, the anticipation to see whom I might get thrown in with?
Yeah, it's funny. Just like I said, I'd seen this as a kid, since I was a kid. So to me, it was just a job. I mean, it wasn't really like, who I was like. I was just focused on, okay, who am I working? What are we doing? I guess hopefully, towards the end, I can look back and think about all those things. But yeah, I never just thought about it. I just thought, okay, it's a job. I mean? Okay, I got to work this guy tonight. I got to work, whatever, going to this program. And, I was always looking at whoever was in front of me.
And I suppose, Carlos, in terms of your run in WWE, then sort of coming to an end, was that maybe, do you feel that maybe that sort of the times period had a lapse in that, or were you sort of disappointed, or were you sort of feeling to yourself, well, it's opened up other opportunities, maybe I can go back to my father's, what you did to your father's industry again, and take it on and maybe progress that even further? So would you like to have had much a longer stint than the original sort of stint that you had, or were you fairly content when you look back at it?
Yeah, no, I wish, yeah, I wish it would have been a little longer. I think, just creative differences, what I mean? Plus I felt like I needed to get away for a little bit. I always wanted to go back at some point, was my plan at least, but I definitely needed a break, at that time. And, just I felt we were on a different page, the company and I. But, you never know. Maybe one day I'm open to it, whatever, but we'll see. If not, also, when I've been able to do other great things. So I'm still happy with that too.
And Carlos, the time you left at WWE, I suppose one of the main startup rivals at that time was Total Nonstop Action TNA. Was there never a chance for you to go back, or when you experienced that sort of American industry, was the longing to come home too much, or was there never an offer on the cards from TNA as well?
Yeah, there was some talks, but like we never moved forward on anything because my plan, like I said, my plan was always to go back to WWE at some point. So I kind of just wanted to stay loyal in that sense and just either work for my dad or work for WWE.
Hmm. And Carlos, coming back home in terms of that and moving that sort of industry on in sort of Puerto Rico, obviously you'd established yourself as a big name, so that left you very much open to do other gigs in the independent project and travel the world and sort of such like that in terms of certain adventures and projects. And I suppose that's sort of the benefit once you're in the WWE sort of thing, you establish yourself as an international star. So when you go out in the independent circuit, I suppose it opens up opportunities for you to fight all over the world in certain promotions in England and Japan and Mexico. And did you find that very much the case?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, it's funny because I ended up traveling the world more after I left WWE,
Hmm.
and I was great. It was great too because I had more time to actually see places. You know, what I mean, I'd be there for a couple of days. I'd get to go sightseeing and go and meet different, meet different kinds of different people, and so it was more enjoyable to travel, I think.
Mm. And Carlos, what was the initial reaction when your brother joined the industry at that time, Primo? Was it very much a great sense of family sort of pride, and was it very much on the offing? When did you start to hear about it, or had you known for quite some time? And maybe what sort of advice did you give him for his sort of tryout or stuff like that? Or is he very much an independent person, an independent character that he wanted to do it his way as well?
Yeah, he's an independent guy. I was there for his tryout, and I don't think. Yeah, I knew I was confident in his ability. I knew, he's actually a better wrestler than I am. So I knew that he'd be up there with me. And my cousin Epico, yes, Epico or Primo, yeah, Epico. I think
Yeah.
I knew that they would be up there too at some point.
And what was it like unifying those tag belts with your brother at sort of WrestleMania in terms of family that moment? I suppose growing up in the backyard out jumping on trampolines as kids and sort of stuff to have that sort of moment in front of maybe 65, 70,000 people with all the camera lights and all the photographs being taken of you after the match as well. I suppose that's something that gives you a great sense of joy that you were able to experience that with your brother.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but now looking back, it's just cool. How many people can say that they were on a WrestleMania with their brother, and the first ever to unify the WWE Tag Team Championship. So yeah, looking back, I think it's probably one of my fondest matches.
Mm. And I suppose, Carlos, I suppose we're getting towards the end of our time with you there this evening, but I'm just sort of curious in terms of friendships, in terms of the wrestling sort of industry as well. They say once you're in with that sort of fraternity, you develop lifelong brotherhood types of friendships that even when you depart the scene, they still last even to this day. I just remember the sad passing of Shad Gaspar, and all the wrestling family fraternity came out in I wouldn't have seen Shad for 1 or 2 years, but they all came out to be part of that sort of scene. Did you experience that after you left the WWE, that the friendships that you made there still last very much to this day, that you're still in contact with people on WhatsApp or phone messages, even that might, even though you might have wrestled in the same ring with them for maybe 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, it's definitely like that, and it's funny because we don't talk every day. We don't talk maybe for years, but is when we see each other or somebody's on the phone, the next to them, whatever. It's like a day hasn't gone by. And so it's, especially like for example when I went back to the WWE for the Rumble,
Mm.
I hadn't seen Randy Orton or all the a bunch of these guys in years, and we just picked up like it was like yesterday that we had talked. So yeah, it's definitely those friendships that still maintain over years and years.
And Carlos, in terms of your wrestling global odyssey that has brought you all over the world, did you ever dock in Ireland and Dublin, or wrestle in terms of Ireland, or
Hmm.
get to? And what was that? What are your memories of arriving in Ireland? I know it's a long time ago, but can you sort of remember anything about what you did or hotel, or food or what the weather was
Yeah,
like?
yeah. It wasn't that long ago at all. It was I've been a couple times. It was great. I just remember my favorite. I think is just the scenery.
Mm,
It's I mean, it's just so the beautiful. I don't know, just everything's so pretty there. And so that, and of course, the people are great too,
mm.
and they
And
like to drink like I do, so that's always good.
And I suppose, Carlos, in terms of going forward now, you mentioned there about still working. Are you still very much active in terms of the wrestling sort of industry, in terms of matches, in terms of schedules? Are you very much open to be a full-time wrestler these days in terms of going forward, or is it very much in terms of certain promotions or certain projects here and there that might suit you, or are you very much to see what opportunities might come away in the future or the horizon? Are you pretty much open to if the project is good and it suits you? Is that the main sort of deciding factor?
Yeah, I'm open to anything right now. I mean, I'm open to all kinds of ideas. Right now, I'm doing my own thing.
Mm.
But I'm open to anything at this point. I'm willing to listen to anybody, and there's something good out there that's beneficial to both. I don't see why not.
Mm. And the last question for me, Carlos, in terms of the Colon sort of family name, to be mentioned in the same brackets as the Guerreros in terms of Mexico and that sort of wrestling sort of fraternity, and you probably know the Guerrero sort of family as well. What is those sort of names and that sort of history? Does it feel that the duty is on to keep it going throughout generation to generation, and is it the aim maybe that maybe your future generation, or Primo or Epico's future generation, that they keep that sort of that industry in the blood, to keep that association with Cologne to wrestling going forward, or is it very much what will be, do you think?
No, definitely. I think yeah, definitely want to push the name forward, and especially in the wrestling industry, and hopefully keep it going, whether it be by example of me wrestling or just the Puerto Rican promotion, making it bigger and making it continue to run on for years and years to give a lot of wrestlers opportunities to get their start.
Hmm. Carlos Colon Jr., as we affectionately know him, Carlito Caribean Cool. Thanks for joining us today to share your memories of what has been an iconic career in terms of the wrestling entertainment industry. And I suppose it'd be only right for me, Carlos, to turn it over to you now for the last 30 seconds. And you might give a personal message to your Irish fans or Irish wrestling supporters that maybe paid tickets to see you in Dublin, or may have supported you or watched you growing up in terms of pay-per-views and stuff like that. What would you like to say to your fans in Ireland that followed your career from the time you arrived in WWE to the present day?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for your support, and I hope after this whole COVID thing, I can go back out there, at least one more time, and see you guys and be able to, do what I do as we're at least for as long as I can. I don't know how many years I got left, but I definitely want to go back one more time at least.
Carlos Colon Jr., an absolute pleasure talking to you today. We wish you the best in your future endeavors and in the safe world, the unsafe world that we live in at the moment. We wish you all the best health to you, your family, and your loved ones. Thank you for joining us this evening. And Carlos Colon Jr., as they say, stay cool.
No, all right. Thank you for having me.
Cheers. Take care, Carlos. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you.